Сега на нашата пряка скайп линия е не кой да е, световно известният финансов анализатор Питър Шиф. Казвам му здравейте, мистер Шиф. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are fine. We are deeply honored to have you here with us. We are a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
We fully appreciate your work and an enormous contribution in the field of economics and investments. You should know that you're very well known in Bulgaria, and thanks for accepting to be part of our show today. Mr. Schiff, how about the effect of the zero interest rate policy in the US, which lasts for 6 years? Was it bold decision after all of Yuan's part to finally undertake this hike?
No, it wasn't bold at all. In fact, I think she was very afraid of what the markets might perceive if she failed to raise interest rates by 1/4 of a point, even though by the Fed's own data, there would have been no reason for them to have raised rates at all, although it was a mistake to lower them in the first place. In fact, it wasn't a courageous act on the part of Ben Bernanke. It was the coward's way out. We should have dealt with the problems 7 years ago, but instead we swept them under this rug. We used quantitative easing to delay the day of reckoning, but unfortunately the problems have now grown much larger as a result of 0% interest rates and quantitative easing. And so unfortunately the financial crisis, the economic crisis that we're headed towards is going to be much worse than the one that we experienced back in 2008.
Mr. Schiff, what's your mind for the so-called improvement of American economy? Were quantitative easing a cure, or they created some distortions within the financial system?
No, it didn't cure the economy at all. In fact, it made it much sicker. The disease that inflicted it and caused the financial crisis had to do with the mistakes that were made and the leverage that was taken on as a result of interest rates being too low for too long. Well, the Fed has left them much lower for much longer this time around, and so now we have a much worse case of that disease, and I think ultimately this may be a fatal case, and we're going to find out just how bad it is now that the Fed is trying to remove the stimulus.
The most topical thing here in Bulgaria is how to bet against the euro or against the dollar. Who would win the race to the bottom, as you love to say?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I do think that the U.S. might win the race. There are other currencies that are going to challenge us. But, I think the problems in the United States are greater than the problems in Europe or the problems in Japan. And right now, I don't think people perceive just how bad our problems are, because we're able to keep borrowing money and spending it. You see, people who are worried about Europe or they're worried about Japan or maybe China, they buy dollars as a safe haven. And in so doing, we're able to spend a lot of money buying important products. We're able to go into debt. And so all that makes it look like our economy is healthy, but beneath the surface, it's actually much sicker than these other economies that people are worried about.
You were indisputably right about the Great Recession. Would be right again for this one, and could anybody know the timing and the possible catalysts?
Yeah, the timing is always tricky. I didn't know the timing the last time around either, and I was warning about that crisis for years before it happened. Although by late 2007 to early 2008, it certainly appeared to me by then that all the signs were there that the crisis would be beginning shortly. And to me, the environment right now feels a lot now like it did then. So I do think that we are a lot closer now to a real financial crisis than at any time in the last 7 years.
Mr. Schiff, in these turbulent financial times, people are extremely concerned about how to protect their purchasing power, their wealth. What's Peter Schiff's advice with respect to this highly topical issue?
Well, I've been trying to help people prepare for this for a long time. And, the dollar has actually risen over the last several years because so many people don't perceive the real threat. They don't understand the U.S. economy. They have confidence in the Federal Reserve. They believe they've done the right thing. But, of course, these were the same people that were confident in 2005 and 2006. They didn't understand the problem back then, and they still don't understand it. They think the Fed solved the problem. They don't understand they made the problem worse. So I think what people need to do is take advantage of other people's misunderstanding and sell dollars. I mean, it's a great time to be getting rid of dollars and buying currencies that will do a better job of maintaining their purchasing power over time. And of course, we have had a significant pullback in the price of gold. Certainly in the dollar price, it hasn't pulled back as much in terms of many other currencies, but I think it is an opportunity for people to exchange paper for real money, because I think in the next dollar crisis, I think a lot of people are going to be looking for a true safe haven, and I think that's going to be gold.
Before to say something about gold, I want to ask you, do you believe the inclusion of the Chinese yuan in the IMF's basket of reserve currencies is crucial action for the future monetary system transformation, and of course why?
I don't know how crucial it is, but I think it certainly is a step in that direction. I do believe that the yuan will continue to gain in popularity, especially when the dollar starts losing a lot of value. And I do believe that ultimately their piece of that reserve basket will grow. You know, so far it's mainly been at the expense of the euro. The dollar's percentage has barely declined. But I think that is going to change as we move into this dollar crisis, because I do believe the Fed has backed itself into a corner from which there is no escape. And I think once the U.S. dollar really starts to fall and inflation really starts to rear its ugly head, even the way the government measures it with the CPI, the U.S. government is not going to be able to do anything to contain the inflation. And I think once this is generally perceived, you know, the dollar is going to lose a significant amount of its value. And I think the argument for having the dollar as such a large component of bank reserves is going to be greatly diminished.
Mr. Schiff, condolence for your father, a great economist, a great person. In this context, do you think that America is losing sight of the liberty and freedom issue?
Well, I think liberty and freedom, you know, have been in decline in the United States for a long time. And I think that's taking a toll on our economy. The reason that America became so wealthy and so prosperous is because we were so free. It was the absence of government, the lack of regulation and taxation that enabled us to flourish. And we became the wealthiest country in the history of the planet because of those freedoms. And those freedoms have been eroding. And today, I think there are people around the world that have more freedom than the United States. And, you know, those are the countries that I like to invest in. You know, it's the principles that are important. And unfortunately, there are countries now that do a better job of honoring America's principles than America does today. I don't think any one country is necessarily as free as we used to be, but there are plenty of countries that are freer than we are today. And what's important is the direction the pendulum is swinging in. And I think that this next financial crisis, this dollar crisis, could end up being very destructive to freedom in the United States, just like the last crisis was.
What about gold and silver? Do you still think buying gold and silver is a good idea? Do you prefer some of them, and why?
Well, I think it's an excellent idea, you know, and people often try to criticize me for recommending that people buy gold and silver. They point to the fact that over the last several years it's down, and had you taken my advice, you know, you'd be down. But, you know, I've been recommending people buy gold and silver since the late 1990s, and obviously it's had a pretty big run since then. But just by owning gold and silver, it's not important that the price always be rising. You own gold and silver almost as an insurance policy. I tell people to have maybe 10%, 15% of their portfolios in gold. And what gold is doing day to day, month to month, even year to year is not that important. In fact, if gold prices are falling, it simply means that the next time you buy gold, you get a better buy. Because if you're trying to keep 10% of your portfolio in gold and your portfolio is growing as you earn more money or as other assets appreciate, you need to buy more gold. And buying it at a lower price is better than buying it at a higher price.
Mr. Schiff, thank you so much. Feel yourself invited to come here in Bulgaria. We grew up listening to your video blog. We grew up reading your books. Are you writing? Are you writing something new?
How did you grow up?
No, we are young. We are young. Are you writing a book or something as a news?
Yeah, well, I've only been writing those books. My first book came out in 2007, so I'm not that old.
Thank you so
Thank you very much
for being a part of our TV show. Wish you all the best from Bulgaria.
Thank you. Thank you.